Hello again. We don't have many more days left. I think 3. 178th day, first video. I think there'll be 3 today. I'm going to divide it up. They shouldn't be too long. I'm in the 20th century, and now I'm finally turning sort of to the happy stuff. What do we have that we value, that we still treasure from this time? And I'm going to split it today into the 20s, the 30s, and the 40s, I think. So classics, what we value. Well, out of the 20s, there were certain inventions that we still value. You know, the automobile. Well, it was invented 20 years earlier, the internal combustion engine. I'm not sure when the first automobiles were actually built, but I don't know, maybe before the turn of the century, possibly. But an average person didn't have one, and even if you had one, there were no paved roads, you know, it was very limited what you could do with it. But in the 1920s, that's why I write down assembly line. Henry Ford, in America anyway, is given credit for coming up with this assembly line idea, and that made it possible to make automobiles, cars, quite fast and relatively cheaply. Before that, every car basically would have been a separately manufactured work of art, in a way. You know, man, I should have put down, I need to put down here 2 airplanes. I mean, I'm going so fast. I mean, that's with the propeller engine. You know, you could regard that as history, I suppose, but the assembly line airplanes, Americans tend to think that it was the Wright brothers that came up with the first airplane. I think Brazilians feel differently, but of course those were internal combustion engines making flight possible. The radio, I think that was a result of the war. I'm fairly sure it was the result of the war. But the radio was invented, and it continues to be highly valued. Many people listen to the radio for part of their day, for a lot of their day, even with all the developments that have come since. Sound in film. Well, by the 1920s, for maybe 20 years more, it had been possible to have silent films, where they had figured out that you could tell a story with a film, but there was no sound, and so someone would sit and play the piano in the room to deal with that awkward quietness. My uncle, Johnny, whom I remember quite well, he used to amaze me as a child, and my sisters, as he played the piano. He didn't need music, he could just play the piano amazingly. Well, he had played as a young man in a theater, and he'd watched a movie and played the piano while he watched the movie. It was quite an art. Okay, now this I didn't know what to do with this. Well, anyway, back to sound and film. I think The Jazz Singer is considered to be the first important movie anyway where sound was put into film. Before that, your humor. I should say something about this. Before that, humor came from what you saw. They were called sight gags, not what you heard. And also, there's a connection to something I showed earlier in the year, and that was a Singin' in the Rain, which was right about at that time, where actors who were so handsome and so beautiful, their careers were in jeopardy because they had a funny voice or they had an accent. Now, they were called the talkies because the movies got sound. All right, Prohibition now, not an invention unless you want to say that organized crime was invented. It was during this time in the United States that this is more history, that an amendment to the Constitution was passed prohibiting alcohol in any form, to be sold, to be transported, to be consumed, anywhere in the United States. Well, it was a disaster. People drank more than ever. And it had to do, I mean, it was part of the whole business of the Roaring 20s. the law could not back up, they couldn't back up their idea. Well, a result of that was dirt track racing, that whole business of moonshine, and also organized crime, because since the government was making it illegal now, and people were still buying alcohol, all that money was to be made illegally. That became quite a problem. And you know, there's a sort of a cautionary tale here, or a lesson, I think, that could be applied, and the jury is still out on this, but about the making marijuana illegal from the 1960s on, you know, if people still consume it, and so it's an opportunity for crime. I'm not sure what to do with that. That, as I say, the jury's still out. All right, still with the 1920s, jazz. It was a new kind of music. It's really the first time that America produced a truly American sound. It had to do with a combination of European sound and the blacks, African sound, jazz. And I should have said, I'm not even sure how to spell this, boogie woogie. I'm not sure how to say that, and I should say from, because boogie woogie was a kind of music that was earlier, and my friend in Germany, Thomas Hockling, he was explaining to me that with boogie woogie you played in the major scale in the left hand and the minor scale in the right hand, sort of, and it helped ultimately lead to that 12-bar blues that you heard us performing. Well, the blues, singing the blues, that was part of this time, done in speakeasies. Myself, I am not terribly fond of jazz. A lot of people really are, and singing the blues. I'm not. And art, I can't even speak to the art of the 20th century. Maybe it's a flaw in my character. I do not understand it. You know, Picasso, I know the names, but you're going to have to go to somebody else to explain what happened in art. It just does not work for me. All right, on we go to the 1930s.